Salutations from the Dapper. No. We don't have time for an intro this time. Pikmin 4 has a big problem that needs to be addressed.
Was that the
So drop your treasures, pause your dandori, and for the love of the sacred onion, stop filing for your 401k.
Let's see. If I put in 50%, I can retire and get the kids back.
Subscribing to the Dapper Pancake? Now that's a Dapper decision. Well, since there's no intro, I say I inform you on Pikmin 4's big problem. Here it is. Are you ready? Here it goes. Pikmin 4's big problem. No, I mean literally, the big problem as in the problem with big things in Pikmin 4. Wait, please don't leave! Let me explain. With Pikmin 4's release also came a new cast of creatures, like the Scorch Cake, as well as...
Show me your move.
Just to name a few. Upon these creatures also came new variants of existing creatures, some being awesome elemental variants while others being the same creature, but well bigger. And that's the problem. I for one enjoy the idea of bigger threats opposing you and your Pikmin, but when it has the same exact design as its smaller counterpart, it leaves a lot to be desired. Some are good, while some are just plain lazy. So I want to find out if there are more good big variants or lazy big variants. To do this, I will take every creature that has a but bigger variant and rate it a score of 1 to 20. This will be done by rating the creatures in 4 categories. Category 1, reason for growth. Category 2, design of the variant. Category 3, mechanical difference. This includes things such as new attacks or different ways to take them down. And category 4, a vibe check, which is exactly what you think it is. Each of these categories can receive 1 to 5 points, straight 5s across the board being the best, while nothing but 1s being no fun. I have gathered 20 different big variants. This gives the creatures the potential of scoring a total of 400 points. In order to pass the inspection, the creatures must come together and score 280 points, which is a 70%. With all that out of the way, I say we truly begin this big dive. The deep dive. Oh, I know. Big deep dive of big creatures of a big world being big for the sake of big stakes and bigger goals and being big. And yeah, never mind. Let's just go with the video. Let's start with the Bulborb larva. After its first molt, it becomes the albino dwarf Bulborb, which is the true dwarf Bulborb. The reason for its growth is just maturing, getting older if you will, which isn't an amazing reason, but also not a bad one either. Therefore, it gets a 3. Just letting you know in advance, all creatures that just get bigger due to age will get a 3 in the reason for growth category. The design looks good. Shows us their onion-like features and adds 2 funny little legs that allow them to walk. A 4 for design. Mechanically, they're actually worse than the larva, for not only are the larvae found in bigger groups, but they can eat your Pikmin significantly faster than the albino dwarf Bulborb. Therefore, they get a 1. And now for the vibe check. The albino dwarf Bulborb plays it very safe, which I can respect. Therefore, I think it's fair to give it a safe rating of 3, thus giving the albino dwarf Bulborb 11 points out of 20. Hopefully this makes sense now. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. Leave a comment, I'll try to explain. Let's continue. From here, we get even bigger to the Bulborb. Reason for growth being the same. However, the design is much better. Still rocking those onion-like textures, but with a nice scarlet color, complemented by some white spots. An iconic design that is such a drastic change, thus getting a 5, baby! Mechanically, it goes back to the attack speed of a Bulborb larva, except it can eat more Pikmin at a time. Literally does everything a bigger version of an enemy should do, thus getting a 4. Only reason it's a 4 is because it's still the same attack, just slightly altered. As for the vibe, well, let's be clear. You can't have a Pikmin game without the default Bulborb. Thus, I give it another 5 for its vibe. Thus, giving the Bulborb 17 points out of 20. You may be wondering, what if the dwarf Bulborb as well as the orange dwarf Bulborb weren't in pastas and were second molts that grew into bigger variants? Would this make the default Bulborb still be a 17? Well, no. This is where the dwarf Bulbear turning into the spotty Bulbear and the dwarf frosty Bulborb turning into the frosty Bulborb come into play, for they will be judged in the same section due to their similarities. That being that they just get bigger with very little design change. Mechanical differences and vibe check is where these two differ. For the spotty Bulbear roams and is never caught lacking, which gives more of a sense of danger. Including the attack speed and multiple Pikmin it can snatch up, it gets a 4. While Frosty just can eat more Pikmin faster compared to its smaller version, a 3. In regards to vibes, when comparing the dwarf Frosty to the big, it's just a bigger, older Bulborb. Very plain, vibe check of 3. While the spotty Bulbear is the same, but it has a massive dumpy, a 5. With all this being said, the spotty Bulbear gets 13 points out of 20 and the frosty Bulborb gets 10 points out of 20. Jumping back to the albino dwarf Bulborb and Bulborb, we get an even bigger variant in the form of the jumbo Bulborb. Its reason for growth is actually not just getting older, for it gets this big when the process Bulborbs go through during reproduction called meiosis fails, leaving the Bulborb with a chromosomal abnormality. Reason for growth is an easy 4. Design. It's literally just a bigger Bulborb. Thus, it gets a 1 in design. Mechanical differences is a hard one, for it technically has a new attack in regards to the Bulborbs, but it's still just trying to eat Pikmin by attacking in 3 separate lunges, which would give it a 4 if it wasn't well telegraphed and able to be punished heavily if dodged. I'm giving it a 3. As for vibe check, I'm giving it a 1.
Oh no.
For the Jumbo Bulborb had so much potential, since they are considered abnormal and can never reach full maturity. It would have been nice to show that off by maybe having its backside the same color as the albinos, or even giving it scars due to its aggressive behavior, or a new attack. No? Okay, moving on. Our Jumbo Boys score a very low 9 points out of 20. Now, what have I told you? That is far from the worst rating. The final creature representing the Bulborbs is the Emperor to Sovereign Bulblax. Reason for growth is reaching older age and leaving the pack. I like that they gave it more detail, but it still gets us 3. Design is fantastic. You can see the change mainly on its backside. The Sovereign rocking a more shaggy look with extra roots and sprouts on its back representing its old age. The rocks added are also a nice touch. He could definitely use a shave. This would be a very good time for a shaving sponsor. If only. I'm giving design a 5. While I know it's subtle, you could tell the Sovereign is the Sovereign compared to the Emperor without having to change the color or anything like that, which I think is still good design.
Rock and stone.
Mechanical differences is an easy 5. For this one gets a new attack, this being the move where the Sovereign jumps high into the air off screen, only to crash down with some rocks appearing out of nowhere. If caught off guard, this move can easily wipe out your forces, leaving the Sovereign Bulblax with 4 attacks compared to 3. As for the vibe check, the Sovereign Bulblax made a very stunning return at the Pikmin 4, and it held no punches. Everything about this boss I just love, which means it would be criminal not to give this boss a 5 for its vibe. With all this added up, the Sovereign Bulblax gets a whopping 18 points out of 20, clearly being one of the highest on the list thus far. But don't worry, friends, we still have a lot to go. Next up are the Blowhogs. Their representation in this matter is not as big as you think. We are only working with the fiery and snowy Blowhog, and it's not looking good. I'm just gonna cover them together because they're very similar. The fiery Blowhog turns into the Titan Blowhog, and the snowy Blowhog turns into the Blizzarding Blowhog. Their reason for growth are due to hormone abnormalities. It's not due to maturity, so they both get a 4. Design looks exactly the same as their smaller counterpart. No changes whatsoever. And you already know how I feel about that.
1.
Mechanical differences isn't too good either. No new attacks or anything. It's their same attack, just with added knockback. But since it does add an effect, I can't give it a 1. But I will give it a 2. And finally, vibe check. Honestly, there was no reason for these creatures to be created. Literally, the walking embodiment of a lazy design for no reason at all. A 1 in vibe check. Oof, both of these creatures get 8 points out of 20. Next up are the cannon beetles. Let's get right to it. Starting with the armored cannon larva into horned cannon beetle. The reason for the big is growing up and maturing, so it's an easy 3. Design is 5, and I don't even have to explain why. The design is so different and well thought out. Let's give it a well-deserved 5 and move on. Mechanical differences is in a tough spot though. The cannon beetle shoots slower than the larva, but shoots out a bigger boulder. And while you can just take out the larva before it does anything, you have to follow the mechanic of the cannon beetle to do damage, which does change the mechanic drastically. Due to the high pros but minor cons, I think a 4 is a good number to give. As for the vibes, while it's not the armored cannon beetle, it's very nice to see representation brought into Pikmin 4. It's not as engaging as a fight as other creatures on this list, but the horned cannon beetle demands your respect. A solid 4 for its vibe. Thus, the horned cannon beetle gets a sturdy 17 points out of 20. Okay, quick pause in the video. It seems I cannot do simple math, and I said 17 points when all of these things add up together to 16 points, which means the horned cannon beetle actually does have 16 points and does mean the final score is going to be off by 1 point. I'll try to make corrections for it as the video goes on. I just wanted to stop this to let you know that I just can't do simple math apparently. Stay dapper. Back to the video. While the Arctic cannon beetle may just have it beat, reason for growth is still a 3 and design is still an easy 5. Mechanical differences, however, is where everything has changed. So the attack speed is significantly slower compared to the cannon larva, but the cannon larva can't harm Pikmin. It can only inconvenience them, while the Arctic cannon beetle, while charging up, can actually eat Pikmin, and that big suck has more range than you may think. To add to that, while the snowball it shoots out can't harm Pikmin, upon it crashing, a bunch of ice spikes fall from the sky and stay in the field as a hazard of sorts. It's already so much more than the Arctic larva, thus giving it a 5. As for the vibe check, also a 5. Mainly because the first time you fight this boss, you'd probably assume it's fought in the same way as the horned cannon beetle, thus resulting in a bunch of Pikmin being devoured. Unless that's just me and my Dandori issues. Probably the latter. Literally the same score of 18 points as the Suffering Bullblacks.
You've reached the halfway point. Geometry dash.
At this point in the video, I'd like to jump to the one-off creatures. These creatures only have one creature to represent the list of big. A perfect example being the female sheargrub to mama sheargrub. Reason for growth is once again maturity, a 3, in case you didn't already figure it out. Design is a bit lackluster, literally being the same design as the female sheargrub, just bigger. A 1, that is no fun. However, mechanically speaking, it gets a 5. Reason being is that the female sheargrubs actually don't attack. Rather, they just walk around. While the mama sheargrub can actually crush your Pikmin due to its size. And the idea of a sheargrub actually being lethal is pretty hilarious. I don't like the mama sheargrub, but I also don't hate it. So for its vibes, we give it a 3. Give it the ability to summon sheargrubs to help fight, you cowards! The mama sheargrub gets 12 points out of 20. Up next is everyone's favorite, the bread bugs. While in this case, the giant bread bug. Reason for growth? I'll let you guess. I think it's a 3. Design-wise, not only is it bigger, but take a look at this. The normal bread bug is a bread roll, while the giant bread bug is a bread loaf. I'm pretty sure everyone knows about the loaf, but not the roll. Don't worry, in another video, we will show this roll the love it deserves. Oh wait, what are we talking about? Oh yeah,
I am the one who nitpick and biases.
mechanically, it gets a 0. Because why would you ever harm these creatures? It was one time, come on! All jokes aside, it gets a 2. For you still play the tug-of-war gimmick fight, just requiring more Pikmin compared to the bread rolls. I know here on the internet we may not all agree on everything, but I know now, without a doubt, the bread bugs vibes are 5s. What the fuck is a vibe? This all results in the giant bread bug getting 20 points out of 20. I wish it was the case. 15 points out of 20. Next is the Downy Snagret turned Barrowing. While not stated, I'm sure we can all assume that the reason for growth is maturity, thus giving yet another 3. I swear it won't always be a 3. I do like the design change a lot though. I would say design-wise, it's a step in the right direction. It's definitely a safe approach though. Therefore, it gets a 4. Mechanical differences is easy, for you're comparing a little enemy to a mini boss. So 5 is a fair rating. For the Barrowing Snagret can eat 3 Pikmin at a time and has an additional Beak Bash attack, while the Downies just hop around and snag 1 Pikmin at a time. Vibe check time, you stupid fucking bird! Wait, why did I record that? The vibes are 5s, for the Barrowing Snagret has been a staple and are nearly just as popular as the Bulborbs. Barrowing Snagret gets 17 points out of 20.
Jellyfish Fields, home of the spotty jelly floats. In this instance, we will be talking about the greater spotty jelly float and its tasty jellyfish jelly.
Hey, yo! For starters, I'm not sure about this one. There's nothing saying that it's a mature, lesser spotted jelly float. So unfortunately, we don't really have a reason for growth. We could assume that it's from maturing, but nothing really states that. We know it's an invasive species that is endangered, but not much else. So for the reason, until justified, I'm gonna have to go with a 1. Boom! I told you, not everyone would be a 3! I mean, oh no, a 1, how awful. Design-wise is much better. It's crazy to think how much more a design can pop solely by changing its color. While I love purple compared to blue, I have to give it a 3. Mechanically, the graded spotted jelly float attacks slower but can grab more Pikmin per attack, thus resulting in a 2, since in theory it is more lethal but has more windows to attack. As for the vibes, I'll give it a 4. Mainly because I really love its purple design, and also if you're caught lacking, the greater spotted jelly float can actually be a run-ender, at least for a Dandori-less pleb like me. The greater spotted jelly float may be 50% bigger than the lesser, but with only 10 points to its name, it's only 50% safe from the big problem. What the heck was I on in these ratings? Hi, Future Dap here again, editing this video, and what I don't understand is why did I give the greater spotted jelly float a lesser score than both the Frosty and Spotty Bulborbs, when their design is basically following in the steps of the big problem? And then if we're talking about Blowhogs, greater spotted jelly float is only 2 points above the Blowhogs, which are big examples of the big problem. So you know what, I'm gonna fix this up. I think it's kind of rigged that just because reason for growth we don't have one, to just give it a 1 and be done with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and change that to at least a 2. Next up for design, it does what a new bigger variant should do. Makes them look different, adds a couple of features. So for looks, and plus that purple shine, it gets a 5. I'm also gonna shoot up mechanical differences to a 3. Yes, I get it, it has more potential to be damaged since it takes longer for it to suck up Pikmin, but the lesser spotted jelly float can't even defeat your Pikmin, while the greater can. So mechanical differences gets shot up to a 3. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with this creature. I don't really have a problem with this creature at all. Therefore for vibe, I think it should just get a 5. So this creature goes from 10 points, 15 points, which is much better than what I had it as. Goodness gracious, you know, it's really crazy to me that I really let this slide. It was a blunder, I admit, but I'll try not to make it again. Moving on. Next up is the peckish Aristocrab. Reason for growth. Well, this results from the Aristocrab offspring absorbing nutrients from the ground, allowing it to grow into the peckish Aristocrab. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally found it. A creature with a 5 in reason for growth. Maybe, just maybe, the Aristocrab is all we needed to get a perfect score. Maybe. Shit. 1. Despite the design, mechanical differences gets a 5, for it gets a brand new attack in the form of bubbles. Hey, a new attack is a new attack. Just saying. As for vibes, it's a 2. I don't really care for this crab that much, for the one in Pikmin 3 had a rock Pikmin mechanic with its crystal arm. And we have rock Pikmin in Pikmin 4. So where's the crystal? It's a wasted opportunity if you ask me. With this being said, the peckish Aristocrab gets 13 points out of 20. Up next is the Guildman Wee, bigified into the Guildmander. Reason for growth is simply maturing, which again is a 3. As for the design, it's literally the same as the Guildman Wee. However, it does get a few extra ores on its back, therefore I can't give it a 1. I'll settle with a 2. Mechanical differences aren't too crazy either. It has the same attack, just more range, and your goal is still the same. That being to knock off the ores to do damage. However, there are 3 weak spots you gotta destroy, and unlike its smaller counterpart, you have to take off the ores to do damage. While the Guildman weak can be taken down with sheer willpower, aka purples. Plus, Guildmander is more of a boss, so I'll give it a 3. As for vibes, I do love these goofy little guys. Plus, if you're not aware of the best way to tackle the mechanic, this boss can take you some time. Therefore, a strong 4 for its vibe. Thus, giving the Guildmander 12 points out of 20. Now it's time for the miniature snoot whacker turned mammoth. 3. What? 3. I'm confused. 3. That doesn't help the ranking. Yes, it does. 3. How? You already know how it does big. 3. Moving on. Okay, moving on. Design is a bit weak on this boy. It's literally just a bigger snoot whacker. A 1. Mechanical differences kind of play in the mammoth's favor, however. For while you still have to knock it over to do damage, the miniature snoot whacker is only kind of there to inconvenience you. For they don't take out Pikmin, rather they just bust a move. While the mammoth snoot whacker, once it busts down, it will prepare a striking attack with its trunk, which does heavy damage if you're not careful. Plus, you gotta use an extra rush to knock him over compared to its smaller counterpart. A 5 in mechanical differences. As for its vibe, I appreciate the creatures in this game that can't just be beaten by spamming Pikmin, even if it does mean just spamming another unit, that being Ochi. Therefore, a vibe of 4. Thus giving this snoot mammoth snoot man 13 points out of 20. Next up is the hermit crawmad turned bug-eyed. Wait. What do you mean they're cousins? Alamar, you can't do this to me. Do you know how much I've sacrificed? Well, not much. You know what? It's part of the same family, and it's technically a boss version of the hermit crawmad, so I say, let it cook. Right, Louis?
Bacon on high heat toast crispy.
Since it's not confirmed to be what the hermit crawmad grows into, for reason of growth, we have to go with a 1, unfortunately. However, design is an easy 5, for you would think the bug-eyed crawmad is the next stage of the hermit too. Mechanical differences gets a 3, for it has the same move as the hermit crawmad's, only difference being you have to take out its eyes to do damage, rather than just baiting it and rushing it. As for the vibe, I give it a 3. For this mini-boss doesn't really do much to stand out, but it's still an interesting design and mechanic once you learn it. If it had an additional move, maybe the vibes would be raised by 1 point. However, with everything I said thus far, this totals out to 12 points out of 20. Okay, so now I'm a bit confused. For next, we have the Toity Bloister turned Bloomcap. But that's the problem. The Bloomcap Bloister, which is considered bigger, is the original species. The Toity Bloister and Ranging Bloister from Pikmin 2 being evolutions of some sort. So you're telling me this turns into this? How? Okay, well, technically the Bloomcap is bigger and this video is about the big problem, so let's just say this turns into that. Yeah. In this case, reason for growth would be a 4 for its evolution, not just maturing. Design is going to be a solid 4 as well. I really like the design, but it is a bit safe to me, at least. Mechanical differences is a freaking 4 all the way. These little fuckers scare me. Not only are they faster than the Toity Bloister, but they don't chew their food. They are literal vacuums that rush in and devour your Pikmin. As for vibe, it gets another 4. If this creature had more representation throughout the game, I would enjoy their addition to the game much more. 4s across the board gives this Bloister 16 points out of 20. And last and certainly least, I'm sure you know them well. They currently hold the title as the worst boss in Pikmin 4. He goes by many names: the Gold Crusader, Code Yellow, and even Humphrey. But I call him the Master Flop. The Yellow Wally Hop turned Master Hop is the sole reason I made this video. You know it's gonna be bad when the highest ranking this thing has is its reason for growth, which, spoiler alert, is a 3 for just getting older. Design, it's literally a Yellow Wally Hop, but bigger. So yeah, that's a 1. Y'all wanna talk about mechanics? Good, because it has the same exact attack as the Yellow Wally Hop, but bigger, nothing else. So yeah, a 1. To top it all off, it's just a big joke of a boss. Which means he's no fun. Which means his vibes are also a 1. Master Flop flops his way to the bottom of the score with 6 points out of 20. Literally the lowest on the list. Okay, with all that being said, it's time to see if this truly is a big problem in Pikmin 4. Remember, they need at least 70% to pass, which is 280 points. Now adding up all the points. Out of 400 points, the big creatures got 255 points, which is a 63%, which is unfortunately a failing score, which means Pikmin 4 has a big problem. Oh no. However, that doesn't mean it's a bad problem. Upon making this video, I still enjoy Pikmin 4 in the same regards as I did upon release, and I always will. For this whole ranking was simply my opinion. I'm sure others agree while some disagree, which is okay. All I'm saying is that I wish some of the bigger creatures got a little more love in their design and or moveset. So at the end of it all, do I think Pikmin 4 has a big problem? Yes. Do I think the game is bad for it? Not in the slightest. Did I waste your time watching this video only to find out that my views on Pikmin 4 remain unchanged? Well, you see, one thing I've learned is, the more you know, baby!